it has been a significant round of results, particularly at the bottom of the table. And we'll start there, shall we? Because Coventry's winning run has come to an end after a 2-0 loss away at Frank Lampard's former club, Derby County. And it's back-to-back wins for the Rams. And what a huge night. What a huge win this is as well, Justin.
Yeah, it's massive. I think, with the greatest of respect, I was surprised to see Derby come away with 3 points, but I think probably more surprised to see them come away with 3 points with so much ease. But in terms of the game and the magnitude of the win, it's huge. It is huge. And I think the most impressive thing is, I know they're not creating a huge amount of chances, but they look so much better, and they've done it against teams who are fighting for the top 6 in Blackburn and Coventry. So yeah, this win is absolutely huge. And when you bring in the context that Coventry have been on the best run of form in their entire history, yes, this is massive.
Yeah, I was umming and ahhing on Tuesday night. Do I reply to all the Coventry fans who slagged me off for saying they've been fortunate recently? But I thought, you know what, Justin? No, I'm a big man. I'm a big man with dignity. So instead, I just went to sleep on Tuesday night with a big fat grin on my face. And despite Derby scoring early on, Coventry didn't exactly take them to task, did they? The goalkeeper Zetterstrom made a few saves, but by and large, Derby defended brilliantly. And like I've been saying recently, despite this only being their second clean sheet in 16, Derby have been all right at the back. It sounds bad when you read that stat out, but it is true. They have defended pretty well in that time. It's just been going forwards where they've been an absolute atrocity. So it was a well-earned 3 points for John Eustace's side, and it's fair to say the optimism levels at Derby have very quickly been turned on their heads, haven't they? Just 2 points won in 12 league games, now back-to-back wins, now just 1 point from safety, after being 7 points from safety heading into last weekend. Justin, the John Eustace effect.
Yeah, I should trademark that. Of course, I tweeted it immediately at the final whistle. Just a bit of joshing, but I'm not going to get carried away because it's 2 home wins and it's 2 performances where they've scored relatively early. I know Matt Clark's goal sort of came halfway through the first half against Coventry, but them scoring early gives them something to build on. It gives them something to defend, and I think that's something that Frank Lampard did point out after the game. It's something that did make me laugh, by the way, just a quick side note, is Frank Lampard, after the game, said, we're not going to make any excuses, before making every excuse under the sun. He blamed the pitch, he blamed the ball being in the air, they couldn't move the ball around quick enough, they're fighting for their lives, etc., etc. It did make me laugh, but yeah, that's a quick side note. But back to Derby, it is a scenario, as I say, I'm not going to get carried away with, because 6 points, it's a clean sheet, and they've obviously got Plymouth on Saturday, which is absolutely huge. And also, you've got to remember that I think this team still is vulnerable. They've got 10 first teamers out injured as well. So I'm just probably just because I'm a Derby fan myself, I'm just trying to remain very grounded with this. I know it's not a flash in the pan because these results have been coming in terms of how Derby defend, but I still want to see more chances being created than there are at the moment.
You're being cautious, Justin.
Cautious,
cautious.
Yeah.
Cautious is fine, but I think Derby fans have every right to be feeling very optimistic all of a sudden, because, as you say, he is dealing with an injury crisis, really. Mm-hmm. Several players missing, and that includes the 2 big money signings from Scandinavia in January. So 2 wins against playoff chasing sides is very impressive in the circumstances. And you're right, on both occasions, they scored 2 early goals, sat on the lead, but it's worked twice. And they were never really troubled in that time. Mm-hmm. And that's what John Eustace does, isn't it? He gets teams organised, and it may have taken a while for things to start moving, but it is moving now. The significant thing is, though, Justin, and this is probably the biggest source of optimism for Derby County fans, is the fixture schedulers have been extraordinarily kind to Derby with their remaining games. 7 of their 9 remaining games are against sides in the bottom half. That's ridiculous, isn't it? So if you're a Derby fan, which we are, you must be looking at it thinking, we're in a great position all of a sudden to get out of the bottom three. And John Eustace deserves so much credit for dragging Derby from the pits of despair to here, where they're looking optimistically towards Safety Island.
Yeah, Safety Island's back. Oh,
yeah,
it's that time of year.
It's just the perfect metaphor, Justin. You've got all these people rowing to the islands, and it's a big old race to see who gets there before, I don't know, a tsunami comes along.
Oh, well, okay. I turned bleak very quickly, but I get the point. The results are important, and you are right. I think that the games that they've got coming up, yes, the fixture list is kind. Again, it's not something that I'm going to look at with too much weight, just because I'm always of the opinion that some teams, when you're playing against a team that's fighting for everything and they play a similar way to you, i.e. teams that are going to be in the bottom half of the table, it's not always comfortable. You want to be playing against teams who want to
some
leave
of them
themselves
just
open.
may not be playing for something as time goes on. Is the other thing I would say.
We've got Preston.
Exactly.
But I think that the most impressive thing is, yes, the results are good, but actually the habits that John Eustace has put into the team over the last 5 games, even with those 6 games, 5 games actually, but the good habits that they have been putting in, that he's been putting in, are there to be seen. I think you look at the Marcus Harness goal here, is, yes, it's an overhit pass by Ibo Adams, but Derby are getting to the byline, they're getting crosses into the box. That's a very important thing. That's something that they've not done, and they're not doing with wingers, really. And also the game management's near perfect as well, with substitutions, timing of substitutions and everything. So it's miles ahead than what it was. Results are just starting to come through.
As Justin mentioned, Derby have got Plymouth away on Saturday, which is such a huge game for both teams. We'll talk more about that tomorrow in the previous show, brought to you by SBK. Just before we move on, Justin, significant news. Ryan Niambe has now equalled the championship record for the most appearances without ever scoring a goal. This was his 201st appearance. And if he plays this weekend, he will break that record. And that feels big, ladies and gents. But as Justin was alluding to just a second ago, Frank Lampard has been playing down the significance of this loss. And I think that's fair, considering it is just the second time they've dropped points in the last 11 games, league games that is. But as I was saying on Sunday, Coventry haven't been playing as well as their recent form suggests. I think the momentum was fading for them. So now they've just got to make sure they get back on that horse ASAP, don't they? Because even though they have been in the driving seat for the playoffs over the last few weeks, they're far from guaranteed to get that place still, aren't they?
Yeah. They've put themselves in a really good position, which is all you could really ask for. And I think them momentum slowing down is a completely normal thing, and it's probably a good time. The timing's good. It's probably never really good timing, but we're on the eve of an international break here. So Frank Lampard's going to have time to work with the players at some point, for a prolonged period of games. I think in terms of steps forward, you are right. They do need to bounce back, because I think they need to get back to setting those good habits, because that's what will get you through the business end of the season. Is if your team is well drilled and well organised and they know what they're doing. The way they play, it'll be easy for them. And obviously I think that's always difficult with teams who have changed manager in the season. So it doesn't, Coventry wouldn't be exempt from that. But I think the other side of this is, off days and poor performances will happen. And Coventry were really flat. They barely threatened, and they did look bereft of ideas at times. Jack Rodoni was out, so that might have played a part. But I think the most interesting thing to come out of this game is there have only been 2 occasions over the last 11 games where Leeds, Coventry have gone behind, and both of those games they've lost. So that's probably maybe a mentality thing. So they're going to get tested even more over the next few weeks. Have they got enough to get over it?
Well, we'll soon find out, won't we, Justin? Because as we've been saying, they essentially need to do their form, which they've just done again, don't they? To get a playoff place. Maybe not to the same levels of 9 wins in 10, but they've got to go again, which is a really hard thing to do. And you've also got loads of teams hot on their heels who would take advantage if they do drop off. Now, I think a result like this has been coming because performances haven't been at their best. So is that indicative of what's to come? I won't be in a rush to back them. Put it that way. So it's going to be interesting to see how they respond against Sunderland this weekend, which is another big game this coming weekend. Plymouth Argyle have won a league game away from home for the first time in nearly 12 months. It's after they won 2-1 at Portsmouth. They had travelled 10,544 miles since their last league away win, which is further than the distance from Plymouth to Adelaide, which is pretty mind-blowing, really, isn't it, Justin? What's even more mind-blowing is Portsmouth have gone from beating Leeds at the weekend to then losing at home to Plymouth.
It's incredible, isn't it? That for them to go from being top of the league to losing to bottom of the league in the space of a few days. But for Plymouth, that's the sweet reward for supporters, because we do say time and time again they are incredibly well backed, and the amount of miles that Plymouth fans have got to cover is ridiculous. So for their away form to be horrendous is it's such a kick in the teeth. But yeah, it's, as I say, it's a sweet reward. That FA Cup win against Brentford, in January was massive. That was a nice little starter for them. Give them something to taste for a while, and then they get the mains here with a huge win against Portsmouth. You can't understate how big it is.
The little touch by Ryan Hardy to set up Mustafa Bundu for the first Plymouth goal is outrageous. What a delightful little flick that was. But if we're being honest, Portsmouth will be wondering how on earth they didn't win with how much they dominate this game. But Plymouth won't care one bit, particularly because, as we were saying on Sunday, Plymouth have been appalling in their last couple of games. They probably produced two of their worst performances of the season last week. So it was starting to look like they might be in danger of getting cut adrift. So to get this win in the most unlikely of circumstances, by the way, because only Leeds have won more points at home than Portsmouth since the start of November, just to make this result even more confusing. But look, a win's a win. It wasn't flashy. Didn't need to be, though, did it? Because we have a bit of life in the Plymouth Argyle carcass.
Rigor mortis set in a while ago. They just seem to be getting a little bit of, I don't know, flexibility back. I don't really know how that works, but
it's like one of those Michael Bay films where the camera centers in on the hand and then suddenly the finger twitches. Yeah, that's what we're seeing here, Justin. And if he doesn't appear in the next film, then he just died. That's what happened.
Yeah, they've not died off camera yet, which means there's still life in them, as you say. Yeah, life in Plymouth, yes and no. Did they play any different in this game? Not really. Blueprint was fairly similar to what we've been seeing. It was just a little bit more quality. And a lot more spirit. I think that's something that Musovic highlighted after the game, which again, I'm not. Spirit does get you a long way. It does, but at some point you've got to coach the team. And they were more threatening in this game than we've probably seen for a few games in the league. Is that down to confidence? Is it down to Ryan Hardy be back in the team? I think that's something that's worth raising. He started for the first time in 6 weeks here, which is massive. He tested Schmidt in the Portsmouth goal with a big volley in the first half. Obviously got his goal with probably a little bit of fortune. Keeper should have done better. But
yeah, I don't really know what happened there. I couldn't tell if it deflected or what. Yeah,
it was just, it looked like Schmidt was wrong-footed, but it went in really slowly. And I was watching the replays, and I was like, surely Ryan Hardy's not going to shoot in that angle. And he does, and he gets in. It's ridiculous.
But also, the deflection was just so near to where Hardy's struck it that I don't think Schmidt should have been wrong-footed. I don't know. Maybe I'm being very harsh there, Justin. Maybe he just anticipated it going in the other corner, and then I don't know.
He saw the deflection, didn't he, the keeper, and Schmidt himself? But that's by the by. But Ryan Hardy's assist for Bundu was brilliant. I just feel that Ryan Hardy's such a decisive element in Portsmouth's forward play. He gives them presence, he gives them fluidity in that final third. He stretches the defenders a little bit, and I think him being in the team really gave Plymouth a hell of a lot more.
Yeah, he's a really good player, isn't he? And I think you're right to point him out by being back in the team, because he's going to be arguably their most important player heading into these final 9 games. But yeah, I won't get too carried away with this Plymouth win. With Derby and Luton, they've each had 2 victories over the last couple of weeks, and they were hard-earned victories. Not flashy, but they probably got what they deserved in each of them. Portsmouth really should have won this one against Plymouth. They basically had 2 attacks and scored from both. But as I say, a win's a win. And confidence-wise, this should give them a boost, which is obviously always important. And we were saying on Sunday that if they didn't win either of their 2 games this week, they'd probably be as good as down. So that stands them in good stead heading into the business end of the season, and they could be standing in even better stead this weekend because they've got Derby at home, which is just such a huge, huge game. More on that tomorrow in the preview show, brought to you by SBK. In a huge relegation 6-pointer at the Cardiff City Stadium, Luton won away from home for just the 2nd time this season. It's after they came from a goal down to beat Cardiff 2-1. Just their 2nd away win of the season. We've had some incredible results this weekend. Not this weekend, this round of midweek games, haven't we, Justin? But what a huge result this could be for Matt Bloomfield's boys.
Weirdly, I keep forgetting how awful Luton's away record is. I don't know why. It just completely goes over my head each time they play an away game. And you sort of, when they lose or don't pick up a win, you're like, oh, okay, fair enough. They lost a lot this season. But yeah, just the magnitude is that it's ridiculous. And obviously to go away to Cardiff, who are a direct relegation rival, and pick up the 3 points, I think is even bigger. That's massive. That's massive. I think the manner of the win needs to be pointed out as well, because they go behind in this game. Where's his character been all season? It's incredible. But yeah, the hoodoo of their away record is obviously it's not resolved, but the 3 points away from home, what that can do for confidence is massive. Obviously, Matt Bloomfield getting his first win a couple of weeks ago, and now Luton getting their first away win for a very long time. It's been, despite the last weekend being quite poor for Luton, it's been an all right couple of game weeks, I would say.
Oh, yeah, 100%. Because after Luton got that win against Portsmouth the weekend before last, I was wondering if we're finally starting to see some life in them. And I mean, that was never going to happen away at Burnley after they had a man sent off after just 19 minutes. So it was going to be interesting to see how they responded in this game. And while it wasn't a blistering performance by any means, they battled. They've shown some fight, which on plenty of occasions you've been asking for more from Luton fans, Luton's players, and they stayed solid, restricted Cardiff to not very much. It also helps when you've got someone like Jordan Clark scoring an absolute worldie. What a strike that was, Justin.
Yeah, that really caught my eye. Bloody outstanding. Beautiful hit from a player I would argue has been a disappointment this season, along with the rest of the Luton players. So I think this is a nice reminder of what he's capable of, isn't it? It was beautiful. I don't know where it sits on the volley barometer, but the ball sits up nice for him, doesn't it? And he just wallops it. It was gorgeous.
I think, because the thing is, when he first gets the ball with his chest, he's taken the ball sort of parallel with the goal. Mm-hmm. So when he strikes it, he's essentially at a right angle. Yeah. So technique-wise, I think this is extraordinarily hard to do, even more so than you initially think at first glance, because it would be so easy to blast that ball into orbit or just get it completely wrong. So it's a wonderful strike. I think it's probably, when we do our end-of-season awards, Justin, we'll obviously be doing goal of the season. And I think you can make a fair argument for this being more difficult to do than whatever we pick as goal of the season, because that's why I think technique-wise it's just so bloody difficult. Yeah. But ultimately it's a bloody important one for Luton, isn't it? Because this is a great result for them, and we'll talk more about what that means in terms of the relegation battle shortly, because it's also a significant result for Cardiff City, and that's for all the wrong reasons, because it's almost the nightmare round of games for them, really, isn't it? With all of the bottom three winning, Stoke and Hull both winning as well. And it leaves them with just 4 wins in 24. There were loud boos at full time in this one. And that's because, Justin, the Cardiff fans aren't daft. They know they are in deep, deep trouble.
Yeah. Cardiff have been in a weird situation in that I've not seen a lot of discourse online, probably until the last 7 days, about the situation Cardiff, about the situation they're actually in. And it's kind of been quite bizarre, but they've got every right to be unhappy because the club is I don't need to keep saying it and banging that same drum. It's rudderless. It's sailless. There's nothing about Cardiff City upstairs that is there's any semblance of positivity to talk about. And I think that's indicative of what they've got at the moment, because the most frustrating thing about Cardiff is they are miles better with their squad quality than the performance that they're putting out. It's clear that confidence is low. That's something that Sivert Mansverk has spoken about in the past few weeks. But, unfortunately, I see a team here who need a manager with experience, have needed a manager with experience all season, and we're just getting the same old. We get a win, things light up a little bit, but it's not enough because they're not consistent enough, and then the players make the same mistakes they do week in, week out. Yeah, it's a frustrating one for Cardiff City, and I imagine you're banging your head against the wall if you're a Cardiff fan at this point.
Yeah, I'm looking towards the dugout with this as well, Justin, because Omar Reitzer, he hasn't done a bad job, I don't think. He's definitely not done a good job either, though. Because, look, they gave him this job off the back of that run where he won 4 games in 6, but since getting the job, he's won 4 in 19. Mm-hmm. And Cardiff clearly didn't have a plan on who they were going to get in to replace Howard Bullard when he got sacked, and they just chose Reitzer because he was the convenient and cheap option. But his only previous experience at managerial level was a 7-game spell at Leyton Orient 8 years ago. So is it really a surprise that it's not working out? Because he didn't exactly get the job based on his CV, did he? So Cardiff find themselves once again heading into the business end of the season in a worrying position, particularly because they've got very little momentum behind them. And you know what? I wouldn't be surprised, actually, if Cardiff press the panic button in the international break and get rid of Reitzer, get in someone else for the final 8 games to save their season. I mean, would that really be a shock if that were to happen, Justin? Let's be honest, it is Cardiff City.
No, it wouldn't be a shock. I've seen writer Glenn Williams talk about, he's mentioned that some of the members of the hierarchy have lost patience with Omar Reitzer, which is easy to see when you look at this. And I think judging on Omar Reitzer's language post-game is quite strong. I worry about him, as I mentioned, having the right experience to pick the players up. Because there's an element of throwing the players under the bus a little bit. He's not questioning their commitment or effort levels, but he has spoken. He did speak extensively about them just making the same old mistakes. And I say, just the language that he used, I thought was quite harsh. When you've got players who are low in confidence, do you really need your manager? Being as I wouldn't say aggressive because it's probably a little bit too far, but as cutthroat as he was at times with how he was describing the performance. It was a poor performance, but I don't think it's particularly fair when you're part of the problem, which Omar Reitzer is.
Yeah, I think that's fair. But look, Justin, we've done a sort of roundup of the relegation battle here. We should mention Hull and Stoke both got big wins as well. That was just Mark Robbins' 3rd win as Stoke boss, so a significant one for them, particularly because we've been particularly worried with them. But these are 5 sides who have found wins hard to come by, haven't they? 6 sides, actually. And the relegation battle is looking very tight again. All of a sudden, just 7 points separating the bottom 7. And not long ago, you had Derby, Luton and Plymouth, who were starting to look a bit cut adrift. But it's all changed very quickly, hasn't it?
Yeah, it's crazy how it happens. It literally just a 3-game set, 3 games in 7 days. It will do that. Teams can really pick up momentum. And I think the key thing is now is we're heading into an international break. Where you've got your John Eustace, Mir Muslic, Matt Bloomfield, your managers who haven't had time to work with their players, they're going to get time to work with the players. Ruben Sellers at Hull as well is going to be another one. So it's absolutely huge. And I think we've got Oxford struggling to win. Obviously Portsmouth losing as well might pull them back into it. It's quite mad. It's quite mad. But I think this is what happens. It's quite rare that we don't get a team that have just fallen away and cut adrift. We've got all three of the bottom 3 now who are in touching distance of teams that are above them. Which I think should worry them. I think it should worry them a lot, actually. So yeah, it's incredible that we're in this scenario now. Momentum and good habits need to start to be formed if you're going to pull away from this relegation battle.
Well, it's very, very interesting. isn't it? It's looking very, very tight. And we all love a good, tight relegation battle, don't we? Even though we support one of the teams in that relegation battle, Justin, but from a neutral perspective, it is enticing. And it looks like it's shaping up to be going all the way to the end of the season, really, doesn't it? And it gives us plenty to talk about as we approach the business end of the season. It's very finely poised. And got Derby and Luton who have found a bit of life. Plymouth, we'll wait and see. But you've got Cardiff and Stoke who have just sort of been lingering in this part of the table all season. Cardiff in particular are looking very, very troubled right now. And, you know, those two have obviously been circling the drain for a few seasons anyway. So wouldn't be a big surprise if this were to be the season that they finally go down the drain, would it? But you've got Oxford who have been struggling for a long time now without a win in 9. They've been properly dragged back into it after being in the mid-table area not too long ago. With Derby and Luton picking up, the tide might sweep them away. So, Justin, where are we looking with the relegation battle now? Are we resetting those parameters? Because I think before this round of games, I was going sort of bottom 7, but with the bottom 3 all winning, are we now casting our gaze slightly higher than Hull in 18th, do you think?
I would go up to Portsmouth in 17th. I would find it hard to believe that Portsmouth will find themselves in a position where they get dragged back into a relegation battle or even get relegated at this point. But just the manner of the defeat was a frustrating one against Plymouth. And I just think that with that points gap being reduced to 7 points, that's another 3-game week, isn't it? 3 games in 7 days scenario where they can get pulled right back in. And obviously with defensive injuries, it's hard to, you don't want to really rule them out just yet. Hull, they're building up momentum, but they still find themselves points-wise in an uncomfortable position, but the momentum's there for them more so than it is any of that team, with any of the teams in that bottom 7 or 8. So, yeah, I'd go up to Portsmouth in 17th, but I'd be a little bit more confident with Portsmouth and Hull being fine.
You know what? I would not completely rule out maybe even going up as far as QPR in 14th, you know, because they're not a million miles away. So I don't think I'd completely rule them out. But what I'd say is I'd be surprised if anyone above Stoke in 19th were to go down. That's what I would say. I'd be surprised if anyone outside of that bottom 6 were to go down. But I wouldn't completely rule out the teams just above them, because the net has been sort of cast a bit wider now, hasn't it, after the 3 wins for the bottom 3, and you know we might actually be seeing some life in them, which would be ridiculous considering they were all looking so abysmal not too long ago. So yeah, it's shaping up to be very exciting, but this is why we bloody love the Championship. Anyone could be going down at this stage. Where you look at the Premier League, Justin, looks like it's all sorted there already, really, doesn't it? But this is why it's the greatest league in the world. Plenty to play for as we approach the business end of the season. Right, Justin, we'll have a quick break. After that, we'll look towards the top end of the table and what's going on in the top 2. Welcome back to the Second Tier podcast. We've done kind of a deep dive of the bottom end of the table, Justin, and we'll now look to the top of the table where we find Leeds United. Once again, it's after a 2-0 win at home to Millwall, a victory to bounce back after that Portsmouth loss at the weekend, and to boot, the 3 other automatic promotion chasing sides all failed to win. What were we worried about, Justin, eh?
It's crazy how well this game week has gone for Leeds, isn't it? It's impressive. It's impressive. I think, if we focus on the positive, I think Leeds bouncing back from a defeat is massive. I think when you go on such a long unbeaten run as Leeds did, I think 17 games as it was, you have no idea how the team's going to respond to a defeat, and they respond well because the manner of the win against Millwall was very professional. It was very professional. It was very straightforward. It was very Leeds that we've seen quite often this season, where struggled to kill the game off initially, but they never look like they're going to lose it either. So it's hugely important 3 points, because as you say, in the context of Burnley and Sheffield United dropping points, it puts a bit of relief back into things.
They're actually the only team in the top 7 to win in midweek, which is just goes to show how crazy a round of games it's been. But this is exactly what Leeds needed, wasn't it? Just a win with little fuss to just calm the nerves. And the fact the teams behind them didn't win is just a bonus. So, but yeah, Leeds were in complete control throughout this one. It always helps when they score early on, doesn't it? Otherwise, Ellen Road can sometimes start to get a bit tense. And I thought Millwall played all right, actually. They defended well for the most part, but Leeds' quality shone through, as it so often does. I think there must have been about 40 passes in the lead up to the winning goal by Ao Tanaka, or rather the goal which sealed it. And that was a showcase, really, in what Leeds can do when they're really in the mood. And they were here. There definitely weren't any signs of a side falling in a parting manner, Justin. So there's a bit of daylight once again between Leeds and the chasing pack, which is all they could have really asked for heading into this round of games.
Yeah, absolutely. I think what that does is it really does highlight the competitiveness at the top of the division. It's never ending, isn't it? It's never ending. I think despite getting Leicester running away with the title last season, they still dropped off massively, and they created a 4-horse race for the top spot, didn't they? And we're getting that a little bit where Leeds are somewhat dropping off, albeit with a surprise defeat away at Portsmouth. I mean, they've not been dropping points regularly, it's worth bearing in mind, but all that does is just compacts everything, and you create a scenario at the top of the table where you've got to be near perfect, and that's a very big compliment to Leeds. You've got to be near perfect to be beating them, because Burnley not quite at the races against West Brom, Sheffield United again a little bit lethargic against Bristol City, and they drop points, and it just throws things in the direction that Leeds need, because I think once this team's confident and the relief is there and the breathing space is there, that's when they really go.
Yeah, that's when they start putting the foot down, doesn't it? And I think if I were a betting man, which, you're going to Cheltenham this weekend, I wouldn't dare thinking of it.
Sorry, did you go to Cheltenham?
Piss off. But what I would say is that I would be backing Leeds to do that, I think, to start cruising away from the rest of the teams in the automatic promotion race. And the big reason for that is 7 of Leeds' remaining 9 games are against bottom half sides. So if they weren't to go up from here, it would be the falling apart of all falling apart, Justin. But they're easily better than Burnley, Sheffield United and Sunderland anyway, so they should do it. They've just had a habit of making it difficult for themselves, and when you see a performance like this, you see how easily they can bypass sides and keep them penned back. And this is a remarkable stat, Justin. Of course, Burnley have been stealing all the headlines when it comes to conceding so few goals this season. But Leeds actually have the 3rd best defensive record in Championship history at this stage in a season. That's crazy, isn't it?
Yeah, that is mad. And it's worth bearing in mind as well that I think statistically Leeds are better than Burnley, aren't they, this season? So technically, Leeds have the best defensive record in Championship history at this stage.
Just slightly.
So this team's built on stronger foundations than it is, going forward. I think they are a better defensive team than they are an attacking team, which is crazy to think. I mean, their goal difference, just looking at it, is plus 51. It's ridiculous. There's such a...
Well, we even cast your mind back to the start of the season, just when we were doing our league table predictions, we were saying that back 6 of outfield players for Leeds, obviously, is basically as strong as it gets, really, isn't it?
Yeah. And it is. Joe Rodon, I think, is a player that we highlighted. Cost £10 million, but he's been worth every penny, because this is what you get. I think it's their shape out of possession that I think really need to shine a light on. They're doing so as well with the winger at right back. Jayden Bogles defensively isn't very good. I think it's really worth pointing it out. It's not a criticism of him. He's an incredibly gifted attacking wing back, but defensively he's a bit lapsed sometimes. So they're doing it. And again, if you've got Junior Firpo on the other side, this is a man who I've said time and time again starts as a striker for his country, very attack minded, another attack minded wing back. So Daniel Farke, what he's doing with this shape and this team and what they do out of possession, how well drilled they are, does credit that, because they're not blessed with the best defenders, I think, are at this level. Pound for pound defenders, I'm saying. So I think it's all the more remarkable that they've got one of the best defensive records. And again, it just highlights the quality of coaching that they are instilling at Leeds. It really does.
Well, I would go as far to say I think Leeds would be looking at Burnley kind of numbers if they had a better goalkeeper, which is...
There is that as well. Oh my God, I completely forgot about old Butterfingers.
It's very harsh, but he's not exactly covered himself in glory this season, has he? Because you think about the number of goals he's been at fault for with Leeds. They would be on ridiculous numbers if you took out those goals. So yeah, it's ridiculous how good they've been at the back, and they should really be even better than they have been. But Justin, you did mention Joe Rodon, you mentioned Jayden Bogle there as well. They may have featured in my new video on the Second Tier YouTube channel, the top 10 signings of the season. So go watch that if you haven't already to figure out who I've picked there. But just in a bit of news about Leeds, if they do go up, there could be a reunion on the cards, because Team Talk is reporting that Calvin Phillips has verbally agreed to rejoin Leeds in the summer, which just seems like the most predictable transfer of the summer, really, doesn't it? But I'm genuinely not sure he would get into this Leeds team if they had a fully fit Ayo Stacker and Ethan Ampadu. I don't know if you got anything to say on that.
That's a good question. The Calvin Phillips of now, I think he might struggle. I like Ethan Ampadu a lot, and I think he should be playing at Premier League level. And Ayo Tanaka, with his energy levels, he suits Premier League football down to a T. He really, really does. It's the Ethan Ampadu element that he may get ahead of. But as I say, I think Ethan Ampadu is good enough to be a Premier League player. It's just whether or not, if Calvin Phillips can recover that form he showed under Bielsa and whatnot, then that'll be a different story. But I think Calvin Phillips of now, you're looking at a struggle to get into that starting 11.
Yeah, well, hopefully if he does go back, the home comforts and being back at the place where it all started, we'll see him refines his best form. But you're absolutely right. If you're looking at his form from the past couple of years, I'd definitely be preferring those two over him. But who knows, maybe he will refine that form and get back to the Calvin Phillips of old, because I think everyone would love to see that, really, because he was a really, really good player back in the day, wasn't he? He was. A 90th minute equaliser from Mark Sykes saw Sheffield United drop points for just the third time in 12 league games. Got a bit tasty at times in this one. Wrestlemania's next month, Justin, but this game gave it a run for its money with some of Jack Robinson's antics at the end. But that Mark Sykes equaliser has to be seen as a big blow to the Blades' title hopes. But they could have been behind earlier in this game if it wasn't for a ridiculous save by the Sheffield United goalkeeper, Michael Cooper. That was unbelievable.
Yeah, it was point blank, wasn't it? It was point blank, and the cross comes in. I think it's Sinclair Armstrong who gets his head on it. It should have gone in. But Mike Cooper gets low, doesn't he, and just pushes it out. It was a wonderful, wonderful save. And annoyingly, I do think there should be saves of the season or saves of the month just as much as there is goal of the month awards, because that was astonishing. But it kept Sheffield United level pegging, didn't it? They were lethargic in this game. They started slow. Bristol City created some really good chances, and Mike Cooper did what he did what goalkeepers need to do. Ilya Meslier, and he kept the scores. He kept scores level, kept his team in the game, and they go 1-0 up early in the second half.
Meslier's not even done anything wrong this weekend, and he's still catching strays, isn't he?
It's mean, isn't it? But you brought him to my attention, and I just feel like I've got to dig him out when I see good goalkeepers do good goalkeeping.
Yeah, well, that's absolutely fine. And Justin, I will point out we do have our own award show, so if you want to do Save of the Season when we do the second tier awards at the end of the season, we can do just that. But Sheffield United's home form has been a bit shaky recently, Justin. They've gone from 9 wins in a row at Bramall Lane to just 4 wins in 10. And that's quite a drastic drop-off, really, isn't it?
It is. It's interesting. I mean, it's worth pointing out that their away form has got better. Their away form has been incredible, actually. So whilst their home form has been dropping, their away form has been improving. Not that it's been terrible anyway, because I think they've got the best away record in the division. But I think teams will go to Bramall Lane now, and there's a blueprint to get points against them. They'll set up shop, make it harder to to play against him, whereas I think away from him you do have the luxury of being on the front foot a little bit more. I think it's worth pointing out this Bristol City game in isolation. This was a very leggy, lethargic, tired performance from Sheffield United. That's the feeling that I got from it. And I think Bristol City took advantage of that because they are a young, hungry team, and they're gonna do that. And I think the draw's more than deserving. But yeah, the drop off in form is an interesting one, but I'm not worried too much just yet.
Yeah, because in fairness, the games they haven't won have all been against sides in the top 8, other than that bizarre game against Hull. But still, considering Sheffield United are as strong as they are, you'd expect them to do better against the sides around them on their own turf. So, I mean, it's not the end of the world by any means, but still, they could have been in an even better position than they are now. They'll be happy, though, because 2 points ahead of Burnley still after they drew as well. Sunderland didn't make any ground either. I will say they have got an appetising set of games remaining. They've still got to face Plymouth, Cardiff, Oxford and Stoke. Got a few toughies in there as well, including Burnley in just over a month's time, which... might virtually be an early playoff final, might it? I think there's only 2 games left after that one. And then in the very near future, Justin, they've of course got the Steel City Derby this weekend, which we'll of course discuss in tomorrow's preview show, brought to you by SBK. Justin, 5 in 10. Name 5 former West Brom players.
Oh, Nathan Ellington, Jason Roberts, Boaz Myhill, Gareth McCauley, Okay Yokoslu.
Very well done.
I went
very well
round
done,
the
Justin.
ears there. I went
a
round
very
the
random
ears.
selection of players.
Of course, if Nathan Ellington comes up, I'm going to mention Jason Roberts, obviously.
I'm not sure if I could have been naming West Brom players for 5 minutes. I'm not sure Boaz Myhill would have come to mind straight away for me, but I like it. I like it a lot. Let's talk about West Brom, Justin, because they made Burnley drop points after the 2 sides drew 1-1 at Turf Moor. This was interesting because this is potentially going to be a playoff match in a couple of months, with Burnley having been 3rd for a while, West Brom around 5th or 6th. We've got to start off with that free kick by John Swift, Justin. That was genuinely inch perfect, wasn't it? You know, people always say the free kick's too close because he won't be able to get it over the wall and under the bar. Someone should have told old Swifty that, shouldn't they? Because he's done it, and he's done it with a fair bit of power as well. That was exceptional. And just the second goal Burnley have conceded in 15 league games, by the way. Incredible, mate.
Well, if you're going to score against Burnley, it's got to be a good goal, hasn't it? And this was a beautifully hit free kick. I think the best thing about this is, you are right, it feels like John Swift is too close to the goal. But how much of a replica is it to that Scott Twine one a few years back, where it's almost effortless? Where Scott Twine does the same thing for Burnley, where I think it's a last-minute winner, actually. I can't remember who it was against, but it was in their promotion season under Vincent Kompany. But it's just when you can generate that much power, accuracy, lift, and dip in the space of 18 yards, 20 yards is remarkable. So yeah, a great free kick. And again, John Swift, please do more of it, because when you play well, it's such a joy to watch. But when you don't, you're a passenger. So do more.
Ridiculous that he nearly joined Derby in January, isn't it? But there wasn't a damn thing James Trafford could have done about that. He's not seen many goals go past him this season, but that's probably the best one he'll see that he concedes. I reckon Joe Wildsmith could have done more with that Burnley goal, though, Justin.
Oh, I don't know what he was doing. He's trying to catch it, but he's diving. I'm still trying to work it out now, actually.
He's just made an absolute mess of it. He's tried to catch it while diving, and he's
catching it while he's falling to the floor as well, which you've got to be a really good goalkeeper to do that. And then it's no disrespect to Joe Wildsmith, who was incredible for Derby in their promotion season from League One. But it just felt like a weird way of saving the ball. What wasn't it? It was a very untroubled shot by Ian Fleming as well.
Yeah. It was. He's made an absolute hash of it, hasn't he? Because he really should have been just doing anything other than what he did with that. But it ultimately cost West Brom quite significantly. But I think overall, just now, say a draw is probably a fair result in this one. Are you nodding in agreement with me there?
Yeah, I didn't see too much from both sides where it was incredible. I think from Burnley's point of view, we get this a lot where, and Scott Parker said it, and I've said it before as well. After what Scott Parker said, the Turf Moor, you can feel anxiety brewing a little bit, and when they go 1-0 down, it's frustrating. But I think Burnley did create a hell of a lot of decent openings without really testing Joe Wildsmith enough. I know Joe Wildsmith did his very best to give Burnley the game, almost, but despite him throwing the ball to Ian Fleming for the equaliser, Burnley didn't test him enough. And West Brom, I think, will be very pleased with an away point because their away form on Mowbray has been a bit hit and miss lately.
Yeah, and then it all kicked off afterwards with Scott Parker and CJ Egan-Riley getting sent off after the final whistle. Egan-Riley kicking a West Brom player after the final whistle because the West Brom player thought the game was still going on, and it all just got a bit tasty after that. I'm not sure why Scott Parker got sent off. I'm guessing he must have said something to the referee, but it was...
But yeah, good Scott Parker's usually a very calm individual, so I'd be interesting. It just felt like the referee
days, though, was he?
No, that's why it's so strange that he's so calm now. It felt like the referee was going on a power trip at the end, because if you just watch him dishing out red cards, it's a face of fury on the referee. He wants to dish him out, and look, he's doing his job, so fair play. But come on, mate, it's a midweek.
It's midweek. Come on now.
Chill out.
Everyone chill out. There we go. This has been the Second Tier Podcast, and this has been our roundup of all the midweek action from across the Championship. We'll, of course, be back again tomorrow. The preview show brought to you by SBK. Of course, some big games this weekend, including the Steel City Derby. So we look forward to seeing you again for that. But this has been the Second Tier Podcast. I've been Ryan Dilks.
I've been Justin Peach.
And a big thank you for listening.